If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. It was a long time ago when Black History Month had just been taken off. I was hanging out with the Buffalo Soldiers and Lucretia Mott, the abolitionist. We were trying to eat some chicken at a local restaurant, and we realized the oppression of the black people, my people, all people. We were sad and upset, realizing that we were outnumbered by oppressors. I knew I had to power up. Ultra mediation, ultra. I stood in between the fighting, the devastation, being cracked by a whip. I took the pain and levitated, powered back. And that's when I became super mediator. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Chicago continues to make national headlines because of violence. The stories keep me alive. They keep me excited and motivated for another day. But what are we going to do about Chicago? So far, Chicago Police Superintendent David O'Brown reported taking 1,180 illegal firearms off of the streets in 2021, while the number of arrests keeps increasing. This is while a report surfaced about more violence in the Windy City that left 20 people shot and 4 killed. Chicago has been in the news quite a bit about the city's continued problems with crime. The ultimate goal for the city is to eliminate crime, but like many cities beleaguered with violence and crime, this goal will be very, very challenging. Let's try to start loving thy brothers, loving thy sisters, loving thy fellow Americans, showing some love. That's what story number 1 is all about. Let's hope that love can be spread out throughout the Windy City. Story number 2. What brought on the age of growing rage in America? Big question. From a push to fight for a $15 an hour minimum wage increase to protest against the police and even an attempt to overturn the election results with a riot at the White House, which many are calling an insurrection. Analysts all over are replaying events that led the country down to the point of no return. But in this growing rage, the question is it hurting or helping the country? We seem to be getting nowhere. Another headline, Democrats are holding on to the goal of holding Trump accountable for the riots or insurrection brought on to overturn the election results. Many in Trump's camp still are making the case that the election was stolen. The number one question inside of this growing saga is, how did we all get to this point? This is just another story in the pile of the growing rage in America. So the pile is getting bigger and the rage keeps getting stronger. A police officer in New Mexico was reportedly run over outside of a Sonic drive-in, adding more fuel to the fire of what's causing the Great American Divide. Big headlines that are making it in this week. 2 mall shootings were reported last week, one in Phoenix and one in North Charleston, South Carolina. The shootings left 1 person dead and 4 people injured. That's another headline to look out for. A lot of things are happening, especially crime. And finally, due to COVID-19, attacks on Asian Americans have reportedly increased, and many are blaming Trump's rhetoric used to describe COVID-19 as the reason by calling it the China virus. Each story brings to light the growing divide when it comes to mending America's broken pieces. And that's why story number 2 is very, very important. And that's why I made it this week. Story number 3. Some foreign headlines that are grabbing the U.S.'s attention that you may want to keep an eye on. The U.S. got caught by surprise after a rocket attack killed a service member and 5 other contractors in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. That's just one headline. There are problems unfolding due to transitions in government, which are a cause for concern in Haiti and Myanmar. Now, although these headlines may be overlooked at times, these shifts in foreign governments often escalate into something bigger. That's why the story made it in. Let's hope that the unrest calms down. Last week, Russia reportedly warned the European Union that it could part ways due to economically painful sanctions. This is another big headline. Iran is still producing uranium metal despite warnings, according to a BBC report. This report cites a breach of the 2015 nuclear deal. So they breached the contract. Now, Iran says that they're just retaliating to U.S. economic sanctions brought on by Donald Trump, but it appears evident that Iran is just using uranium enrichment as leverage to get what they want out of a deal. Now, each story could serve as a foreign policy issue while the U.S. tries to maintain stability when it comes to foreign relations. That's why story number 3, such a big headline. Story number 4. The drug game is real. Yes, it is real. This is a real story. The drug game has spun across the entire globe with cunning tactics from owning businesses while also using drug money to buy out and take over neighborhoods and also get into politics. If you're wondering how drugs that are known to be harmful and addictive became legal through legislation, check the records of those in office or the identity of lobbyists in Washington, D.C. The drug game is real. It's legit. It's a big game and has left a long trail of people who feel powerless in a world of trouble and pain. So some say, how did this happen? Do you blame the person using the drug? Do you blame the dealer for constantly selling this product? This is a big question inside of the drug game. If the game is so big, the question at the end of the day is who is actually winning? And there's a lot of people losing. Scott Miller, who won a silver medal in the 100-meter butterfly at the Atlantic Olympics in 1996 and was on the Australian 4x4 100-meter melody relay team in Atlanta, which won bronze, has been arrested in Australia after police seized methamphetamine valued to be valued at $2 million, according to a Fox News article. This drug game is big. It's almost affected almost everybody. Now, experts are blaming the pandemic on the growing drug problems due to emergency room visits brought on by drug overdoses. Drug overdose visits were up 45% in 2020 compared to 2019. The CDC reported 81,000 deaths in a 12-month period ending in May 2020. The drug game is exploding. It's big, and there's a lot of people winning, and there's a lot of people losing. And there's a lot of people on the radar, and there's some people who have never even been caught. And that's why story number 4 is such a big headline. That's why I made it this week. Well, those are our top 4 stories that I made it this week. I'll be right back with the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories. So don't go anywhere. You're on the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. And go to the website. It's method8inc.com. Method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. It was a while ago. Me and Nat Turner, we was at the buffet. Somebody came over, said they wanted a piece of my sweet potato pie. Nat Turner looked at him and said, "Hell no, you can't have none of Brian's sweet potato pie. This is my road dog." From that moment, together, I had a co-mediator, a friend to help and protect me through the scuffles of Black History Month. Nat Turner taught me a lot about standing up for myself and taking on the world through mediation. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let's get to it. Story number 5. How far will the defund the police movement go? Big question. Minneapolis residents found out how hard it was to go on without the police. A cry to defund the police later led to a cry to provide more money for them to serve and protect. Now, the idea and movement to defund the police caused a wave of new discussions across the country. Now, the question is where a movement to defund the police will end up is slowly taking hold of the conversation, especially with cities continuing to grapple with crime problems. We need you. Show some love. Help us, police. Call 911. Come save us. And that's why story number 5 is such a big headline, because we need protection. We need security. The MTA of New York City is requesting for 1,500 additional cops to patrol its transit system. I guess this is after a homeless man launched a random weekend slashing rampage, leaving 2 people dead and 2 men wounded. The transit system has also reported I guess they've been seeing an uptick in assaults and crime after a huge decline in people utilizing the transit service. So they're still seeing crime after people stopped using the service. So they've been seeing a decline in activity, but an uptick in crime. And that's why story number 5 is such a big headline that made it in this week. Story number 6. Has the world finally got a hold of the coronavirus beast? Here's some notes. 130 countries have not even started any forms of vaccinations. Some countries are still even considering shutdowns at the moment. But the COVID-19 cases have reportedly dropped below the 100,000 mark, according to an NPR report. Now, many are wondering what is causing cases to all of a sudden be on the decline. This begs the question of, has the virus finally reached its peak? This is a big developing story. The CDC says that roughly 40% of the U.S. coronavirus deaths could have been prevented, according to a USA Today article. Many are blaming inequality. The story is still developing. That's why story number 6 made it in this week. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. Almost there. The next step for world leaders will be to get economies back on track. That's a big goal. Now, according to a BBC article, Japan's economy grew by 3% compared to 2019, but still didn't meet expectations by shrinking 4.8% because of COVID-19, the coronavirus. The virus has really damaged the world economies and has left world leaders scrambling to adjust with the losses brought on by the virus. Many countries are still trying to grapple with poverty on a mass scale, while also trying to find new policies that work to weather the storm. Each dent to the world economy equals more people starving and more job losses. So every time the economy takes a hit, somebody is missing a meal. And that's why story number 7 made to the top 2 this week. Money is on my mind. Money is on my mind. I'm sure you get the point. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that made it in this week. Woo-wee. Education and government spending once again is a topic of discussion. Rob Snyder took some jabs at the growing public school problem, calling it a new kind of child abuse. The stories go on. The National Guard's presence in D.C. had a taxpayer price tag reported to be $438 million, according to a Fox News headline. That's a lot of money. wasted. Because of a rise in suicide rates, San Francisco is reportedly suing the city's school district. The district has reported a 66% increase in emergency room visits relating to suicides and 75% increase due to mental health services, which many are blaming the school shutdowns. So they're suing. The federal budget deficit could hit its second highest rate since World War II, according to an NPR article. That's bad news. It gets worse. Joe Biden issued a letter to Congress discontinuing funding for Trump's border wall. He stated that no further tax dollars would be spent on the wall. About $25 billion has already been spent on the wall, and the number of common sense thinkers are very concerned about the pendulum swinging in the wrong direction in regards to government contracts and U.S. spending. This is bad, wasting money all over the place. Last but not least, I wish I had time to name all of the legends that have passed on to the next life in America recently. But all I can say is rest in peace and thank you all for paving the way by setting the bar for the next generation. It encourages us all, the next generation, including me, to work a little bit harder, be humbler, and carry on. Thank you. Thank you all, especially for the paths and the things that you've all done so gratefully, the work you've put in. The people who don't feel appreciated, even you, the people we have lost along the way, they have really given us the energy to appreciate and be thankful for the opportunities that we get in this great country. Well, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines, the media. You deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator, the man in the middle. If you want to show us some support, it doesn't take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. I am grateful and always thankful to do the work for you, to keep you informed. I hope I'm meeting my goal. Thank you so much for tuning in. Just a little bit exhausted, but I'm going to get through it. I'm fighting on to go through 200 or more stories next week just for you. So thank you so much for tuning in this week with me, Brian West. Have a good week, everybody. Peace.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.